morning with 128 players, and of course now we're down to just 2. And I think it's fair to say that when we started off last Monday morning, no one could have predicted we'll be left with 2 finalists in Cao Yupeng and Neil Robertson. But one thing we can predict is that later on tonight, one of them will be taking home a cheque for £70,000 and, more importantly, the Stephen Hendry Trophy. It's the best of 17, the first to 9 to be crowned this year's Scottish Open champion. It's the world number 67, Cao Yupeng, up against the former world champion and Triple Crown winner Neil Robertson. On paper, it looks a formality, but as we've witnessed in previous finals gone by, it doesn't always go according to plan. Yeah, not only have we blown the Eurosport budget on the Christmas decorations, but of course the best pundits that money can buy, in Jimmy White, Ronnie O'Sullivan and Neil Foulds. Boys, always good to see you. I'm very excited about the finals. I'm sure you are as well. Neil, I'll start to you. What's it like on finals day for a player that's never been in one before? Yeah, a big day, certainly for Yupeng, because he's not really got that close. I mean, he has been in the semi-final this season and he lost to Judd Trump, but he got his own back. This is a really big day for him. It's quite rare to see 2 overseas players in the final of a UK-based event as well, so that's quite something. I'll flip the question to you, Ronnie. What's it like being in a final when you're such heavy favourite for it?
Yeah, it's just another day at the office, really, isn't it? You know, it's just it's payday and it's picking up the trophy time. So, you know, nothing like a final. So Neil will be really wanting to win this tournament today. He'll feel like if he doesn't win it, it's one that probably got away, you know. Yeah. Do you expect Neil Robertson to have lots of chances against Cao Yupeng? We saw him yesterday against Judd Trump. He tried to slow the game down slightly.
I don't know if that's right. I think Judd Trump said that he tried to slow him down. I think that's just his style of play. I don't think he's that slow. I think with Robertson, where it's full-out attack, it wouldn't matter if he slows the game down. Cao has got to really concentrate on his own game. He's got to try and get out the blocks quick in the first 4 frames. Because if Robertson gets the lead, he will just get stronger and stronger.
It's one of the big differences as well, Neil, when you're in the final. Not only is it over one match, not only is it over one session, now it's over 2 sessions throughout the day as well. So it's quite a long old day for both players, isn't it? Yeah, it is. But as Ronnie says, you know, Neil is kind of used to this. He's been in plenty of finals. As for Yupeng, I think that 147 that he made early in the week has obviously given him a boost, not only because it's worth 20 grand, but it's made him feel better. So since then, he seems to have played a lot better, and his cue action has really tightened up this season. Yeah, OK, well, we can find out a bit more about both players, starting with Neil Robertson. Our very own Neil Foulds caught up with him earlier on, and he started off by asking him about how he's been feeling about the last couple of months on the base.
Yeah, the last 2 months, I've seen myself, you know, take my game further than, you know, what I thought was possible at times. I'm still improving as a player. I'm always looking at things to improve, and I've managed to do that, especially with my scoring, my long putting. You know, I've never felt better on my long game now, which is obviously a huge threat to any opponent that I play, knowing that if they leave me with my hand on the table, that, yeah, there's a good chance I'm going to knock the red in. Aside from the tournament in Hong Kong, which you won, this is the first ranking final you've played in for quite some time. I bet you're thinking, must be quite excited about the prospect. Yeah, definitely. This is why, you know, play the game that I love so much. You know, occasions like last night against John, and, you know, great to sort of push through for another final. And, yeah, you know, obviously collect some, you know, important ranking points along the way. But today I'm just looking to push on and play really well. Your opponent is Cao Yupeng. I guess at the start of the week, if you thought you was in the final, you'd have been surprised that he was there as well. He's done well, hasn't he? Yeah, he has. I thought I played him in the quarterfinals of the Wuxi Classic, and afterwards I actually said that I think he's probably going to be the next player to win a ranking event after Ding, and that was about 4 years ago. It didn't quite work out that way. I think he got in a bit of sort of technical problems and stuff like that, but he seems to have ironed those out now, and you know, he's made a 147 earlier in the week, and yeah, I mean, you know, he's going to be on cloud 9, and I just have to apply the pressure early in the match.
Neil, I'll start with you. They're both players, actually, were the underdogs in their matches. Of course, Neil Robertson beating John Higgins and Cao Yupeng beating Judd Trump. Neil was just outstanding in those first 4 frames against John Higgins. Do you think he even surprised himself with that kind of form? Well, he played virtually perfect snooker. I think he missed 3 pots in the first 4 frames. 2 of them were rest shots. One of them, the frame was over, and the other was a double when the frame was over. You couldn't play any better than he played. It didn't matter if it was John or Ronnie sitting in that chair. They'd have found it hard to win in any frames. We know he's capable. It's just good to see him back playing like this, you know, because he hasn't played so well for a little bit of time now. Yeah, Ronnie, you've played Neil Robertson plenty of times. How good a player is he when he's playing to the best of his ability?
Yeah, Neil's, you know, like an outstanding player, you know, and I think the one way to beat Neil, and whether Cao Yupeng can do that, is to really get into him and, you know, make it like an instinctive game, because Neil likes everything. Or he's quite methodical, and if you're an instinctive type of player, you can unsettle him and take him off of his game. Whether Cao Yupeng can do that, because he's a bit similar, he's a bit more methodical as well. So I think it will suit Neil. And obviously, if Neil plays the way he did against John Higgins, then you know you're going to be sitting in that chair for quite long periods of time.
Jimmy, going back to that game yesterday against John Higgins, there were moments where he could have been forgiven if he would have got a little bit nervous towards the end, because back came Higgins from being 4-0 down, but he started to pot the balls that he needed to. There's some real important balls.
Fantastic
blue there, you know, lost position on the black, recovery shot. This shot we like, because your cue has to be dead straight to hit that with power to make sure to plant. Robertson, you know, he's back to scoring heavy, and his strength for me is his long ball potting, and that seems to be back in abundance. So, you know, he's going to be quite a threat for the rest of the season, I think.
Yeah. Do you think that the style will change in this final? Do you think that Cao Yupeng, having seen how successful he was against a real attacking player yesterday in Judd Trump, do you think he'll try and slow Neil Robertson down slightly or not?
Well, if he tries that, I don't think it'll work. I think he got Judd at it a little bit yesterday, as you could say, but I don't think that's going to work. I think I agree with what the boys have been saying. I think he's probably played the same game as Robertson, but not as well. I think it's a really tough day for him.
OK, let's find out a bit more about his opponent, Cao Yupeng. The world number 67 was talking to Philip Studd.
This season just practice a lot safety, and last season is only practice pot the ball, and always in the match when we play the safety, and always can give the chance to other players. So this time this year I feel my safety is a little bit better. Yeah.
Neil hasn't been playing quite so well recently and hasn't qualified for the Masters, which everyone expected him to. But he seems to be back in form this week. How do you approach playing Robertson in the final?
He's very strong and he can make a century a lot. But if he gets 3 or 4 centuries tomorrow, if I play with him, so just 3 or 4 frames, just take every chance, then 100% concentration. Is don't thinking a lot. The other things. Yeah.
Neil, Cao Yupeng last season in total won $6.5 grand. He's got £20,000 for the maximum plus another 2 for the highest break. He's guaranteed at least 30 grand today, 70 if he becomes champion. What a week he's had.
I know, and those stats are one thing. The other thing is taking out the shootout. He only won 2 matches last season, the whole of last season. This season he's won 22 matches. So something's changed, isn't it? And all these matches to get here, 6 of them, and the 147, he must be feeling great. If he goes into this final, a bit like in the way that Joe Johnson did when he won his first World Championship, you know, I'm pleased to be here, I'm going to enjoy myself. It makes him a really dangerous player. It means he can win something, and hopefully he will take that into the match.
Jimmy, one of his opponents that he beat this week by the odd frame was Daniel Wells, 4-3, and you know, of course, what type of player Daniel is because you came up against him before that. What type of player must he be to get through a match like that against Daniel Wells by the decided one? The one before that against Alan Taylor was the decider as well?
Yeah, with Daniel Wells, the game was quite slow, and he managed to get through that 4-3. And I don't think he's that slow a player. I think he's just sort of very methodical how he gets down, and he has a pre-shot routine. But as the lads have said, with Neil Robertson, it won't bother him at all if he's slow or fast. Robertson would just play the table. So it's imperative that he gets out and wins at least one of the first 4 frames.
Ronnie, we saw yesterday against Judd Trump that both players were quite edgy and nervous in the first few frames. How difficult is it to get settled in a final?
This was at the end of the match, and I thought he dealt with it. I thought his composure from start to finish was, you know, better than Judd's in the match. I think that was the reason why he won the match. I also think he's had some great results this week. You know, he's beat a lot of good players. You know, this was a pressure red in the last frame, so he can do it. And I think this red was fantastic pot. You know, punched it in the middle, hard shot, just to get over the line. You can see he collapses a bit. You know, 10 frames of all the hard work.
Relief.
You get the reward. You know, so but I just think also as well, there's so many good young Chinese players doing well now, and they all practice together, and I think they're all feeding off of each other. So their belief is not necessarily coming from themselves, but they're seeing their friends that they normally beat in practice, getting to finals and semis, and thinking, well, if he can do it, now why can't I? So I think the belief amongst the Chinese brigade, if you like, is all kind of making them all push on. They're like competing with each other in a way.
Neil, I mean, on paper, as I mentioned at the top of the show, it all points to Neil Robertson, but as we've seen so many times, you mentioned Joe Johnson as well, it doesn't always go according to plan. What has Cao got to do in those first 4 frames to give himself a chance?
Well, he's got to relax. He's got to be out there relaxed. I mean, it was interesting watching him practice. He's playing all those shots where he showed left-handed. What was that about? So he's obviously, you know, quite loose and looking forward to it. He's got to get a couple of frames on the board. He doesn't want to go behind because it could start to get one-sided. I think he knows that.
OK, our final is about 5 minutes away from starting. It's, of course, coming up right here on Eurosport and on Quest, and it begins right after the break. We'll see you in a minute. Warm welcome back to the Emirates Arena in Glasgow. This year's Scottish Open final is just about to get underway. You won't miss a ball. It's live right here on Eurosport, as is the tennis. That, of course, features Nadal, Djokovic and all the top players. It's the World Tennis Championships. It's between the 28th and the 30th of December. It's live on Eurosport 2. Last couple of questions to the boys before we get our snooker players on the base. Ronnie, do nerves never really settle in a final until you get your first frame on the board?
Yeah, you just want to win the first frame, get settled into the game, and then you're up and running. And so probably more important for Cao to get that first frame on the board, because obviously it's his first final on that. But if you're playing well and you're confident in yourself, then sometimes the scoreline doesn't really matter. You just know that, you know, you're going to get chances and you're going to score. OK, Jimmy, we've got a session this afternoon, a session tonight, and both those sessions are split either side of the interval. Is that how you play it? You know, first 4 frames, see how you do, regroup and start again?
You just play each session, each mini session. You know, you got 2 4s and then another 4 and a 5 tonight. So you just try and win each session, and obviously that takes care of itself.
OK, in a word, who do you fancy?
I think Robertson will win quite easily.
Ronnie?
Sorry to say that.
Robertson.
OK, all right. Only time will tell. Let's hand over to our MC, Mr. Mark Johnston-Allen.
Thanks, Andy. Ladies and gentlemen, welcome to the final of the Gafferbet Scottish Open 2017. What a fantastic atmosphere.